Hi, I'm Brandt Passalacqua. I'm the director of Breathing Deeply Yoga Therapy, and I'm here with Joseph Simek, a graduate of our advanced program. And we're here to talk about some work he did with plantar fasciitis, which is definitely a popular complaint. So we're interested to talk about this. So Joe, you did some group work for this, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, this was a group of, actually it ended up being all women that I met with for the condition of plantar fasciitis. I did intakes with all of them, and then we did 4 weeks together as a group, learning to work with the condition. Yeah, it was really interesting.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you learned, I guess, from intaking them all, and just a little bit about what you did in the sessions for the group class, and then how it all worked out, as far as you know.
Sure. So I think the most notable thing that I found in the intakes with all of them is that every single one of them had one or two of the following going on. They either had significant weakness in their hamstrings and glutes and their hip extensor muscles, and or their posture, they had hyperextended knees, which I think contributed to the issues that they had with their fascial line, their back fascial line through, from their heels up. And it was, as you go through the intakes, it's interesting because you're like, am I going to see this again? Yes, you try to not look for it, but it keeps coming up. You keep seeing these same things. So it definitely, I had worked with a handful of people with plantar fasciitis. I had it myself. So I knew that was coming, but it was really interesting to see it sort of again and again and again. And that really informed what I did with them in session. To me, with what I learned through the course and what I had experienced on my own, I really saw this as like 4 buckets, right? It was like the postural stuff and gait stuff, like the hyperextended knees, figuring that out, improving, strength and flexibility in those hip muscles, doing some sort of fascial input with tennis balls on that back line of fascia, and then sort of generally getting the clients into, a more restful state, so that they could just promote healing. So that's really what I tried to do in session, was teach them the kind of those 4 buckets and give them a sequence that they could do at home that sort of hit those 4 things. And
did they do the sequence you gave them? Were they compliant, or was it?
Yes. I mean, generally, it was, there were certain students or clients who were, ready to go from day one. One person took on the postural corrections and the gait corrections, and she was like, I went downtown and I was walking around and I was really aware of how I was standing and how I was walking, and that would have totally put me in a lot of pain before, and I had much less pain when I was finished with that day of walking around downtown. So immediately I had some success. And then I heard from clients later, not all of them, but some of them saying, oh, I can, as we got to week 4, and I heard, when they gave me feedback, like, oh, this is helping me, this is getting me out of pain. So
it worked. It worked for many of them. I read in your case studies that
they did do well. Yeah.
And my question was, how long was the class? And then how long were you asking them to do stuff at home?
So the class was 4 weeks. And then I asked them to basically work on the sequence.
How long was the sequence?
The sequence itself, probably, I tried to keep it in the 20-minute range. There was a lot to do. And we did talk about how, you could practice postural stuff or the strength and flexibility stuff kind of on its own. But, because plantar fasciitis involves, in this particular case, strengthening and stretching, I was really, I made sure that they were doing their physical asana stuff in the right order and not sort of doing it a la carte. And I think that's one of the problems that people have, is that they go into this intense stretching for their back fascial line and they're not warmed up. So those
you
types
have
of
them warm up and you have them strengthen and then stretch. And that took about 20 minutes. And so, and you came up with the ideas of what to do with the class just based on the intakes, and you were lucky, and sort of lucky, I'm just joking, but in that they all had similar things, or most of them. So that was great. And, you know, it's interesting because I don't know that I've ever seen a plantar fasciitis class like that. I've worked with clients in that way, but I've never seen a group class presented like that. Do you think, did it ever occur to you to like run those classes again, just kind of do them all the time?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was so interesting that I saw the same thing with all of these, you know, sort of middle-aged, you know, women who had the same condition. I saw the same things, that it did occur to me like, oh, you know, this is something that you might be able to plug into a class setting with a lot of success. Because, you know, for the most part, plantar fasciitis isn't thought of this way. You know, you go to, you know, podiatrist, or you go to, and they're thinking about the foot more than they're thinking about the rest of the body. And, you know, people just don't have this way of looking at the condition all the time if they don't go to
and it's hard to access help for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
as a yoga therapist myself, and when I get people, that's basically what's going on. They just haven't had anybody that really could help them in that way. So it's usually their first exposure. Well, it's a really nice piece of work, and it's a really good example of what you can do with yoga therapy education in a group setting. You know, we think a lot about one-on-one, but that's a great way to use it for groups. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you could add about, since you did this, you know, as a practicum student and the Breathing Deeply practicum, anything you could add or share about the mentoring you received or that process, or what
Sure.
it was like for you?
I mean, for this particular condition, I can remember conversations that you and I had about the condition when I had, you know, when we were just sort of generally talking about it. And that definitely led to this sort of four-prong approach that I had. I mean, each of those things, the postural stuff, the strength and flexibility stuff, the fascial stuff, like that came right out of the course, and I just put it together. And, you know, and it was this is going to sound silly, but it was almost kind of easy to see it, right? Like to see it unfold before me, because I knew, I was like, okay, well, you can see the posture, you're muscle testing them, you can see it, you know, you can, and you understand the way the fascia runs up the back line now, like the puzzle pieces are right there. So it didn't take a lot of effort to come up with what to do in this class, because I was taught exactly what I needed to see. So, I mean, it was almost like surprisingly easy. So,
well, as a teacher, it's music to my ears, you know, because that's what we hope, that, you know, you train people and then they can put the pieces together themselves like that after the input really quickly. And that's definitely what you did. So, well, thank you for sharing with us. And I'm sure many, many, many more people are going to get the benefit of you being their yoga therapist. So
awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much.